Welcome to another edition of Wings Weekly. Jay Kleinknecht here, and of course, head coach Scott Langer. Coach, we start with the weekend up in Bismarck here. A 6-1 loss on Friday. And frankly, it just feels like a game that was kind of an anomaly that you just want to get behind you in a sense, but we'll touch on it briefly. They benefited from some early bounces and puck management, turnovers, as we've talked about. Was a problem there on Friday night. But I don't think that the score is as indicative of how the game went as some might think when they look at the standings or at the scoreboard. Even though in the end that's all that matters is the score. But there were some things you had to clean up, obviously, and you guys did a good job of doing so. Friday night, that matchup obviously didn't go the way you wanted, but what did you see?
Well, it's hard when their first goal goes off a skate into the net, and then they get that high stick into the net that was called a goal, and especially on the road, you're already fighting the battle of being in another team's building. But those are hard to combat, but the score wasn't indicative of the game. I mean, it was a pretty good hockey game. I mean, but obviously they did a really good job of capitalizing off our mistakes, and that was the difference at the end of the night.
Yeah, well, and it was really close. I mean, 1-1. It felt like it ended up being 3-1. They're going into the third, but it felt even closer than that until about 3 minutes there, where there's a couple of turnovers that led to goals and some defensive breakdowns and so on. But like you said, overall, it wasn't as bad as it looks, I guess, when people who aren't following or weren't there when they look at the scoreboard. But definitely some things that you guys wanted to improve upon, and you did so on Saturday. What were you able to how do I put that? To tune up, so to speak, for Saturday night?
Well, our game was much tighter, as far as our team's concerned. We were way more disciplined with the puck. Obviously still some turnovers, but at this level, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we were much better, and we made some plays. When you make plays, you can score goals, and we made 3 really good plays, and we scored three really nice goals. And I thought defensively, obviously, we did a pretty good job keeping them at 1 for a team that has scored some big numbers in the last month or so. But again, it's the way our guys reacted. That's important for me. Nobody wants to go in anywhere and lose on a Friday night, but our response was where we needed it to be. It's a long day sitting in a hotel thinking about what's going on, but our guys got it together and obviously took 2 big points on a Saturday, which is hard to do.
Yeah, it is, certainly on the road and certainly in the VFW Center. But, like you said, it would have been easy to kind of hang your head, as a team and kind of go, wow, we got embarrassed. But like you said, the way they respond was a huge thing there. And you mentioned it, even in the pregame when you and I talked, you said we have to make plays. Did so on Saturday night, big power play goal, better puck management, obviously, great goaltending. We saw Geno Pichora in between the pipes, and of course we've seen a great goaltending on several occasions from Cole Moore. You and I have talked about that quite a bit, but great to see Geno back. Honestly, and you guys obviously see him, in practice all the time and stuff. I kind of was thinking there was going to be some rust, but he didn't show any. From the first shots, he just really seemed like he was on his game.
Geno's kind of a pro. He tackles everything like a pro, and when he came back and started doing his rehab, he did a really good job of getting himself back, and he worked himself into the net in practice, and he battled, and he was ready. He told us he was ready, and he was obviously ready. He had to make a few big ones there early, to kind of put us in a situation to be able to do what we did. But it's not easy for a guy not to play for months and to step in against a team like Bismarck, and I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, when I was looking at the stats and so on, I'm going, 2 games played. Is that right? Is that accurate? I kept having to go back and look at things. The fact is that in regular season, the only 2 games were played when the injury occurred. But fantastic to see him back. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions before we get to those. You are now tied for the best penalty kill in the Central Division, 100% on the weekend against one of the best power plays in the division for sure, but even overall in the league. You and I have talked about it. They're now just short of 85%, and you like the way things are looking from the penalty kill. Obviously, it's working. What's working?
Well, I think our guys compete at it. They as a group, we challenge one another, but we also were challenged against our opponent. We knew, where Bismarck was on their power play going in, and our guys were obviously up to the task. I just think they really enjoy working together as a unit. The penalty kill unit is, we're a team within a team, and they did a good job. And the biggest thing is when we lay out what we need to do, they seem to execute it really well.
Right.
And there's some thinking to be done on the penalty kill, and every team's different looking, and you have to be able to change your game from game to game, and even when you're playing the same opponent, you're going to see some different things when they tweak what they're doing. But our guys have just been really good at it, and I think they enjoy shutting the other team down. And obviously, we've also created some offense off it, which is where you want to be on the penalty kill. But yeah, I mean, from where we were to where we are now, we've done a good job. But obviously, you need a really good penalty kill to finish high in the standings, headed into playoffs. So we're going to continue to get better at it.
Great to hear that. Like we talked about, not only have they been solid defensively, but off a shorthanded goal from Owen Dubois last weekend, and another good chance on Saturday night. There it was. So you're, as you mentioned, creating some offense. But on top of that, it feels like there's a boost on the bench too when you're able to kill off those penalties. That'll do a lot for a team too, won't it?
Well, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, both your power play and your penalty kill, you want them to raise the energy level on your team, and you certainly don't want it to hurt you. And
right.
Giving up a power play goal can certainly hurt your momentum, and giving up a shorty can hurt your momentum. So you want to, no matter what you do, you want to make sure that you're energizing the team within those specialty teams. And so far, this weekend we did that on both.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've got a couple of questions here. Some of these questions that I ask, I usually kind of know the answer to already, but they're questions that I hear or, hear people talking about, like the 200-foot player or whatever, because it's interesting to hear your perspective of it. And one of the things that I actually picked up on this watching, I don't know if it was a soccer game or a basketball game or what, but other sports will often game plan for an individual player. They have someone they know they need to shut down, and they have to work on it. You'll hear coaches talk about how that's going to be a key. We have to shut this person down. You don't ever really hear that in hockey nearly as much. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I mean, I think at the NHL level, you'll see some of that with guys like, Ovechkin and guys that are that talented. But,
sure.
Like around here, we believe in what we do. As opposed to worrying about what the opposition does. So for me, that's a little different. I've never had to really key on one player. Obviously, when a team's on the power play and they got their trigger guy, you want to make sure that you're dealing with him the right way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure there's teams within our league that do game plan against certain players on teams. But we very rarely will put focus on one player. It's a team sport, and I truly believe that when you got 6 guys on the ice, one guy, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, he shouldn't hurt you. Right.
Well, one of the other things I thought maybe would play into that, and this is just kind of speculation, but because of line changes, it happens so frequently in hockey where, say, basketball, those top 5 are going to be out there a lot longer. For extended periods of time too, so I thought maybe that might be part of it. Also, I wanted to ask you about scratch players. I see, depends whether we're on the road or whether we're at home, whatever. I see the other team's scratch players. Sometimes, they have a beanie on and wearing warm-ups or whatever. Your team, they're dressed. They're dressed when they arrive to the rink, in suits and dress shoes and the whole nine. Of your scratch players when they're in the building at the VFW Center, for example, or wherever we are. They represent the Aberdeen Wings, and they look professional. And I wanted to ask you about your, I don't want to say mindset, but the mentality there. What is the thought process there?
Well, the first part of that is when you have to put your suit on, you have to take a shower, you have to brush your hair. It's time. That's the light switch. That's when it's time to start thinking about the game. You're preparing, and that's always been my thing. Is that it's really easy to roll out of bed and throw a tracksuit on and jump on the bus and head to the rink, and through all that time you haven't thought once about the hockey game. You've thought more about other stuff. The other part is, to me it's a respect for the game, and we have the ability to play and to coach the greatest sport there is, and so many people before us have busted their ass, for us to have this opportunity. And I think when you go in another building, whether you're a coach or you're a player, you should have respect for that environment. And we're missing some of that a little bit in our division, but I think that for us, we're really proud of how we look.
Yeah.
And we want to respect the game, and we want to respect our franchise. And as long as I'm here, guys are going to look presentable, and they're going to represent the team the right way.
Love that. Look like a pro, act like a pro, be a pro. Austin right now top of the Central Division, 38 points. Minot with 28 points in second. North Iowa with 28 points in third. They have 26 games played, 3 more than the Wings. Wings sitting in fourth right now with 27 points, just 1 point back from North Iowa, who pulled 3 out of 4 over the weekend. Bismarck sitting then in fifth with 23, and St. Cloud at the bottom of the division with 20 points. Austin comes to town this weekend. They will be here in the ODI Center, 17-3-1-3. They swept Minot this last weekend, scoring 10 points. How do you game plan for a team like Austin? You've seen this team, but they're rolling.
Yeah, they are. And, it's going to take our best game in order to be successful against them. They've always been good defensively, and you add in 2 goaltenders that have done a really good job for them, and they're getting timely scoring from their guys that have been around.
Yeah.
So, but, we've pretty much had hot teams coming in our building every weekend. It seems like a team's getting hot, and then they're coming into our building, and it's going to push us to be better and get better and have to play really well.
Yeah, for sure. From a video standpoint or a game planning standpoint, what do you see as some keys for Austin this weekend?
Well, I don't think you can take penalties against them. I think you have to be really disciplined, and you got to play good team defense.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Coach, once again, that's all I've got for you, but I appreciate you as always taking some time, sitting down, talking to us a little bit about the weekend that was and the weekend that will be.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, folks, we'll continue with the second portion of Wings Weekly coming up after this.
We raise the bar on bar food with sandwiches, tenders, and there's more where this came from. To the greatest of all times.
Welcome back to Wings Weekly, and the second portion, as usual, includes a player. This time, it is Geno Pichora of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, first off, how are you liking it here in Aberdeen? I obviously come from the East Coast. Things got to be a little bit different. I always like to talk to guys, especially those that aren't from around the area, what their impressions are and what their thoughts are of the area.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being from Pittsburgh, it's a little bit of a bigger city compared to Aberdeen.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously it's been a lot better than what I thought. I didn't really know what to expect from a small town. I've played in other places before, but not a place this small. So definitely a little bit of a culture shock, but it's been a lot better than what I thought, which is really good.
Yeah, well, glad to hear that. We've had guys from Pennsylvania before, obviously right now OCs, from Westchester. I know that obviously there's a lot more population over on that side of the country, but hockey's a small world. Did you ever have a chance to play against, O'Connell or?
No, I don't really remember. I don't think we really played over there that much, but I do actually, my roommate and stuff like that, Zach Ryan, we played against each other when he was at Gentry. So a couple of the guys, we did play against each other.
Okay.
But yeah, so.
Very cool. I know a lot of times it's I'm surprised at what a small world, the hockey can be and how many players have played against one another, or maybe they knew someone who was an Aberdeen Wing or whatever. They can hear a little bit about what to expect and stuff. So, how did you get started in the game? I always talk to guys about when they first started skating and maybe some influences. Was there a family member or somebody that maybe played?
Actually, no. Nobody in my family played. I'm kind of the first person in my family to play. My dad, growing up, played street hockey, so I wasn't really big to play ice hockey back then, and got to do learn to play hockey with the Sidney Crosby Foundation.
Okay.
And started out as a player, and my dad told me the goalies never leave the ice, so they play the whole game. kind of sound interested to me. So.
Well, that is a very good point. They never leave the ice. Yeah. But you're kind of an island too, kind of by yourself a lot. And what was that transition from being a skate-out skater, to being in the pads and to be in the crease like that? Was it maybe you were too young to even kind of really remember, but was there a mentality where you kind of had to get used to that?
Not really. No, I mean, as a goalie, I guess. Like, you have to be calm and stuff like that, and you're kind of the star of the show when things go right, but you're kind of the guy they fall back on when things aren't going so right, and I kind of like that, it always keeps the pressure on, and, it's not really hockey without pressure, so.
Yeah. Interesting way to put that. And, I was just talking with Coach Langer. Obviously, you had a fantastic game there on Saturday night, and, they get a chance to see you, at practice and so on, and kind of can gauge, what level you're at or whatever. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was nervous for you. I actually kind of felt like, oh man, there's going to be a little rust. It's going to be tough to you. And right off the bat, you were at top form and had a great game, making some huge saves and so on. How did it feel? Did it feel just like, riding a bike where you kind of just know exactly what's going on, or were there some nerves?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, there weren't any nerves. I mean, I usually keep it pretty loose before games. Not really the kind of guy that kind of goes in the corner and just keeps to himself. I like to interact with the other guys still and keep it loose, not to really get in my own head and stuff like that, so.
Well, I figured it might be a little different coming off of, months where you're, recovering and so on, that it might be a little bit like, okay, can I do this? But like I said, you showed all kinds of great confidence and poise, and just my hat's off to you. I just kept thinking throughout it that you were just playing great. And in fact, I even got a couple of messages during the game saying, stop saying that, you're going to jinx him.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
No, you looked great. That was awesome. I mentioned it, recovery. What was that like? You go back home for a while and you have an injury to work through.
Yeah.
It takes a long time, and how do you keep your mind and the rest of your body, your legs, whatever, prepared to come back? How did the recovery go?
Yeah, so I went back home and probably like 3 weeks just about. I didn't really do anything because surgery and stuff like that, but once I got back into some sort of physical activity, I basically rode the bike for like 6 weeks.
Sure.
So that's what kept my legs into it. And then for the mental side of it, there's not really much you can do. Our goalie coach, Josh Aycock, works with me a lot in the mental game, and he sent me a couple books to read about just not being too in your head and stuff like that. And obviously nothing else to really do when you have an injury, so I watch a lot of The Sopranos on HBO Max. So yeah.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me, and it works perfectly into my next question, which is off the ice. Hobbies, interests, what do you like to do? Is there a certain, like you just said, maybe a series or something that you're really into? What do you like to do when you're not at the rink?
Yeah, so kind of like during in season, stuff like that. I like to binge watch a lot of TV shows. Doesn't really matter the genre, it could be really anything, but I also do like to cook as well.
Okay.
From a young age, when I moved away, I had to learn how to cook and stuff, so I take a lot of enjoyment in that. And then in the summer, I like to watch a lot of baseball.
Okay. So. All right, now I got to ask you, if you like to cook, what would your go-to meal be if you were trying to impress somebody? Maybe you got a girl or whatever, you're saying, hey, I'll make you dinner. What's it going to be?
Well, obviously being Italian, it's got to be something with pasta. So I'm going to go probably chicken parmesan with the pasta underneath. So.
Very good. Okay. We've got Austin coming up, and we're going to talk about them here in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you if you would rather never be able to lie or always have to believe everything you're ever told.
I never lie.
Yeah?
Yeah. I like to think I tell the truth for the most part, but I don't like to be gullible. So.
Yeah. It's always a tricky one, and I get people want this because, it's like, well, you kind of look at the morality of it and stuff, but then as soon as to believe everything you're ever told would be, and make you a fool in a lot of times. Well, like we mentioned, we've got Austin coming up. This locker room, obviously, a rough game on Friday night. You bounce back. You get that redemption game on Saturday night. How do you guys as a group prevent a night like Friday night happening again when Austin, the best team in the division right now, points-wise, comes into the ODI Center? What do you guys have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we really have to change anything. It's just, having that same attitude of just whoever comes into the building or wherever we go, we're just going to run them out. So, not really getting too caught up in the standings because every game's a big game.
Right.
It's the next game.
And it's early, too.
Yeah, it's also early in the season. You just got to focus on the next game, take it period by period. So.
It's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's something I talk about during the games, in between periods and so on. We'll run through standings or whatever, and I'm like, it almost feels silly to be talking about standings when you're 22 games into a season. It's something you keep your eye on, but the reality is there's a lot of hockey in this season left to be played for sure.
Yeah.
You're committed, University of Minnesota. Tell me a little about that process. How did you get? Were you able to go on a tour, for example, or anything like that? Or?
Yeah. So I was about 16 when I committed, and it was kind of I played a couple games in the USHL and I think one game in the NAL as well, and that helped me. They were already talking to me, Minnesota was, and they saw me play a couple junior games, and they actually flew me out the day after we played and wanted me to tour the school, and went there. Really nice campus, nice facilities and everything, and thought it was a place for me, so I ended up committing there.
Sometimes I wonder about how difficult of a decision it would be for someone to decide on a school, especially when at a fairly young age. But I mean, the U of M, that's a hockey mecca in a lot of ways, so I can see where that might be a little bit easier. Well, Geno, I tell you, I don't want to keep you too long here. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us, though, and just give everybody a chance to see how you're doing from the recovery side. Obviously, you're back in top form, but also getting to know you personally a little bit, too, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, the Wings are home at the ODI Center this Friday and Saturday as we host the Austin Bruins, as we were just talking about. Doors open at 5:30 both nights, and the puck hits the ice at 7:15. Friday, we celebrate early Christmas with us as Santa and Mrs. Claus will be in the lobby from 6 to 7, so bring the kids. We welcome Cashway as the game's corporate sponsor inside the Automax Party Deck. Saturday, we're hosting a hat and mitten drive. Bring an item to donate and get a $5 general admission ticket at the door. We welcome Bank North as the game's corporate sponsor inside the Automax Party Deck. Fans are invited to stick around after the game for another Danger Von Dempsey Skate with the Wings. Just a reminder that all SDAHA players and coaches can receive $5 tickets at Wings games all season long. Very few corporate night sponsorships are still available for the 22-23 season. Call Aaron at 605-380-5852 to see what's left. Your skater can still sign up for Wings clinics with assistant coach Zach Stepan. Visit AberdeenWings.com and click the Aberdeen Wings Youth Clinics tab for details and dates. Don't forget, you can listen to Wings Weekly via our podcast. Find the audio for this season's episodes on Spotify, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. And for all the latest news and information on the Wings, visit AberdeenWings.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. Once again, Geno Pichora, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck against Austin.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that'll wrap up this week's Wings Weekly.